And in the meantime, hello and welcome. It's so good to have everyone here in this beautiful Farmside chat situation that we have going on. And really, even more so, a huge gratitude moment to Shakira and Steph and Xavier of uh, the Black Dirt Farm Collective with us, and Steph Yahweh DeWolf of the Farmers Footprint Circle of Creatives are just some ways that they spend some of their time beyond being incredible human beings outside of that. So it's a pleasure to have y'all here with us today. Thank you so much for jumping into what will hopefully be a fun and inspiring hour together. So we are headed into some goodness where we're going to hear a little bit more about everyone's work here at the Black Dirt Farm Collective. Steph is going to share a little bit more about the incredible work that this group of Black activists and agrarians with ties to the Mid-Atlantic region are doing to heal alongside the land, and how they're calling it the Black Dirt Farm Collective and the way they're showing up in the world accordingly. So yeah, I'd love to just get people a little bit tuned into that piece. We'll today be kind of running through an introduction to their work, and then we will really get to hear and dive deeper a bit more on their incredible mission to heal the land and create community. I'd love to invite everyone as they are popping into the chat, and we're waiting for folks to kind of arrive. Rolling and liking. Okay, perfect. We are live. As folks are kind of arriving, just go ahead and pop in. Like, how are you arriving today? If you are, where you're coming from in the world, and yeah, what brought you to the conversation. So we'll let those kind of roll in, and then we'll pass it over pretty soon to Steph. And from there, this is a really cool opportunity to ask the Black Dirt Farm Collective leadership team that we have here with us today questions directly. So as we're getting started in the session, if any curiosities pop up for you, go ahead and drop them in the chat, and we will circle back to them. A little over halfway through the session, we'll open up questions directly. So feel free to flood the chat with your curiosities. That's kind of one of the main intentions of this session, is to give you guys an access point, a window into the incredible work of these agrarians. So use it, get curious with us, and we really invite that in alongside you guys. Amazing. So yeah, I would love to just have that gratitude for you three joining us and spending your time. There's so many areas that you could really be placing your attention, and it's a really a huge honor to have you guys jump into this community and share it with us and bring your perspectives. And also to everyone in attendance, same, ditto. You guys could be spending your time and attention in so many places. And it's really beautiful that you chose to wake up today and listen to a farmer and an agrarian and a creative story. So really appreciate that. If this is your first time jumping into a Farmers Footprint event, we orient from the theory of change of what's possible when you attune to stories, and also come together as a community to create capacity to have an understanding, a deeper understanding of the multiple lived experiences that are possible within the agricultural space, and how do we move as a crew and as a unit from there to figure out different ways to do it and better ways to do it and learn from each other and inspire each other. So that's a huge part of why we're here today. We do a lot of other stuff in the community and in our storytelling kind of silos or platforms, or however you want to talk about it. But a really special one is this Meet a Farmer series. So it's just such a blessing to feature Black Dirt Farm Collective. And I didn't do the thing where I was going to invite you guys to use your voice and say hello, but what's going on? How are y'all? And I'm going to show a video soon and then pass it over to Steph, if that sounds good. Are you guys doing good, Shakira and Xavier and Steph?
Yes, thank you.
I'm doing
Happy to be here.
Nice. We love it. Cool. Awesome, gang. Well, we, as a member of the Circle of Creatives, which Steph is a part of as well, they jump in and co-create some of these Meet a Farmer features, whether that's through interviewing and writing the long-form blog. and or creating videography and content in that sense. So this is a video that Sophia, a member of the Circle of Creatives, created and had a chance to be on land with Xavier. So I'll go ahead and share that now so that you guys have a chance to see some of the beauty that's happening on the land in Maryland. Can you guys see this?
Wisdom of nature has been an amazing teacher for me. And so I think farming can really help heal and guide, many other young Black folks that are trying to find their way in the world. My name is Xavier Brown. I'm from Washington, D.C. I'm a member of the Black Dirt Farm Collective and a land steward at the Black Dirt Land. So the Black Dirt Farm Collective is a collective group of Black folks up and down the Mid-Atlantic, as far north as Detroit and as far south as North Carolina. Our goal, really, one of our missions is to promote afroecology and reconnect Black folks back to their agrarian roots, and also kind of educate a new generation of Black farmers, Black and brown farmers and growers, and create the space for people to learn, in a safe space, people to grow personally, spiritually, physically, intellectually, and also grow food, and also just to kind of be connected. We consider ourselves kind of like a centerpiece in a spoke in the Mid-Atlantic of the kind of new generation or returning generation of Black people kind of hearing the call of the wild and the call of Mother Nature. For us, what we're doing with Black Dirt Farm Collective is creating a space for folks to regenerate in the natural cycles of life.
That was really dope, X. I love it.
Yeah, no, she did a good job. We were out there for hours. We was pulling that together. Shakira, I don't know, like Katrina was there too. She was having like a women's retreat. And like their back, they were doing their own thing. They came down from Philly, but she did a good job. And she's been hitting me up too, like wanting to stay tapped in with us too. So she's on here. Thank you. She did an amazing. That was real good, man. She's talented.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful work. I love how you were like hanging out with that. It looked like a tomato for a minute. You're just like enjoying it. That's beautiful imagery. So cool. Wow. I love that. I love the live reactions. It's so fun to see that kind of happen. That's like actually a piece of the ethos of the storytelling. It's like seeing for the farmers to the Circle of Creatives, that interaction of witnessing their own work in like a produced cut sense of like, wow, this is, yeah, it can be so beautiful to have it reflected back to you. So thanks for that live time reaction. I feel like we're on like a Twitch feed or something. So good, gang. All right. Well, I think that's about it for me. I'll be back when we are going to be stewarding some of y'all's in the queues, curiosities. But I'd love to lovingly pass it over to Steph, and she's gonna attune you guys to a little bit of Shakira and Xavier's background, and then get into some of the juiciness of what we've got on deck for you guys today. Let's go deep. Appreciate y'all.
Let's do it. Thank you, Tori. Hey everyone, I'm Steph. Thanks so much for being here. So let me try to do my best at a quick intro for a collective of folks who are doing a lot of beautiful and complex things. And I don't know if 3 minutes will do them justice, but I'll do my best. And this is also for those of you who haven't read the Meet a Farmer post. Hopefully this plants a seed of interest, and check that out to learn detail. But the Black Dirt Farm Collective is a collective of farmers, educators, scientists, agrarians, organizers, seed keepers, and researchers. They are guiding a political education process that is rooted heavily in agroecology and land sovereignty, anchored in Marlborough, Maryland. And they're bringing their communities along the way. And we have the great honor of being the co-founders today. So we have Shakira Tyler. Shakira, who uses, actually, Shakira, would you like to tell us what are your preferred pronouns?
Sure. Peace, everyone. She, they is fine.
Thank you. So Shakira is a farmer, an activist, scholar, and she engages in Black agrarianism, agroecology, food sovereignty, and climate justice as part of her commitment to abolition and decolonization. Xavier, do you have preferred pronouns?
He, him is cool.
Thank you. Xavier is a gardener, a farmer, and the founder of Soilful City in Washington, D.C. The intersections of urban agriculture, environmental sustainability, and African diasporic culture. You all wear a lot of hats, and so let me just give you a chance to also plug in anything that feels really essential that I didn't mention. Okay. Okay. Seems like we're good. Thank you for your gracious acceptance of those intros. So I thought we would just dig right in around this notion of agrarianism and agroecology. I know that you all are very particular in naming the fact that the Black Dirk Farm Collective members are not just farmers or even just growers, but you're agrarians. And you've also defined you've defined your own practice of agroecology, which you call afroecology. Do you think you could share more with us about these choices and why they matter to you as co-founders? And I'll invite whoever wants to start to just go ahead, and then we'll pass it over to the other so that we can just hear from both of you on that.
You want to start, X?
Sure. Could you say the question one more time? I'm sorry.
Yeah, totally. So why have you chosen to emphasize agrarianism, and also just tell me a little bit more about like why agroecology matters to you enough to define your own form of agroecology, afroecology. I'm interested in hearing some of those choices and the thought process and how they are linked to your values as a collective.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, from my perspective, I would say even from the early stages of BDFC and we were all meeting each other, I felt like we were, at least from my perspective, we were all like creating something. I mean, Black agriculture has been going on for like time immemorial, but like what we were doing in that time period was something new, and we were creating, kind of defining things from where we saw things back in like, I don't know, 2011 or something, where we were seeing things and seeing things that were developing based on maybe things that we've read, things that we've experienced, and things that were going on in that current moment. And so I think, you know, we were all individually involved in different things in our own individual cities, and then kind of looking at things that were happening internationally and things that had happened in kind of like Black agriculture history, and like bringing all these things together and kind of realizing, like, I don't know if we realized it at the time back then, but like, hey, we're kind of like at the forefront of a movement, or we're kind of at the pointy end of like something that's shooting a certain direction, and we like define it, you know, ourselves. And we used to have a lot of like gatherings and discussions and stuff like that about all these different things that were like at that time like way over my head. I didn't know what was going on, but like the more I read, the more I understood, and the more I continued to like utilize like these different processes and theories like in DC. I know I'm kind of around. Hopefully that answers the question, but like I feel like we were in this space to like create our own thing. You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense. And it was kind of based on all these other things, like making gumbo or something, and we were putting it all together, like creating our own thing. I think it happened like organically. I don't know if it was like intentional, you know. So I'll let Shakira. I'm sure Shakira has her own perspective.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Xavier has shared, and I'll add that so agrarian as a concept or as a idea is deeply connected to the idea of being a peasant, which is more commonly used in what some people call third world countries, or places that are not of the United States, here, Turtle Island, which we call um, honoring the indigenous name. And so agrarianism captures beyond just growing food. It's not just about growing food. This is about spiritual growth. This is about cultural reclamation. It's about regenerative economies. It's holistic, and so it's not simply about being a farmer. This is about avenging the suffering of our ancestors, earning the respect of future generations, and transforming ourselves in the process. That's what Mary Hooks from the Black Lives Matter Atlanta chapter says. And so I borrow her words to contextualize what we're doing. Like, this is not just something to have fun with. Like, we're doing this because we feel mandated to do it. And agrarianism captures what it means to be a person of the land in the most holistic sense. And so it's physical nourishment, and it's also spiritual nourishment above everything else. And we approach our work from that spirit-based lens, because as we're engaging in these revolutionary aspects, we have to have reverence, right? And Exit, his partner Sade, did a really beautiful workshop on how reverence and revolution come together in our work, not just as the Black Dirt Farm Collective, but as like Black agrarians, where we're culinary artists and we're sea keepers and we're researchers and organizers. So we're not just like farmers in the most simple part of the word. And we stand in deep solidarity with peasants all over the world that engage in what we call the re-peasantization of the globe, where we're retreating to the countryside, we're reviving the rural culture of our communities, because that's essentially where the center of life is. And so we identify with this idea of extracting ourselves out of the dominant wage economy to build our own regenerative economies in the process of reclaiming our indigenous ancestral cultures and so on.
Thank you. That's beautiful. It just relational nature of agroecology and how different things fit together to create a whole and functional system. And I'd love to ask you just to like develop a little bit more on this relationship-based piece. So I know that you just said that you're in deep solidarity with agrarians around the world, but my understanding from talking with Xavier when we first met, and also a little bit with you, Shakira, when we spoke, is that part of your process before you even accessed this land in Marlborough was creating gatherings to build relationships with other agrarians, and in some cases even international folks who are in their own ways embarking in this movement. So could you all just share a little bit more about that? I'm interested in who some of these different folks that you're building in solidarity and collaboration are, and also why this relationship building matters to you. And, I don't know, you could share stories, you could share reflections on some of the gatherings and kind of how you have found that they leave folks feeling. But I would just love for you to dig a little deeper into this relationship and solidarity, kind of global solidarity piece. I could pass it to you, X, and then we could.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so the encounters, we've gone to other people's encounters in other countries like Puerto Rico. I think people have been to encounters in Brazil. And I guess we went to Cuba. I don't know if that would be considered an encounter, but it was an agroecology like gathering. And then we host our own like afroecology, and we've hosted an agroecology encounter. And man, they're like the experiences we used to have them like pre-COVID were, for me, they were beautiful experiences. And there were people from up and down at least the eastern seaboard for sure. As far north as maybe New York, as far south as maybe Mississippi for sure, representing a ton of organizations. And I mean, not to kind of go into like the minute details, but if you can imagine like maybe 100, 125 like Black people camping on land, Black owned land. We used to have them on Harriet Tubman's ancestral lands. We had them in North Carolina, in Durham, North Carolina, at some other Black owned land. And there's, a certain kind of process and a rhythm to what we do that, incorporates culture, political education, some technical skills, just some all out, just like fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'll pass it on to Shakira, but I know it definitely. I'm full when I leave it, and I'm part of the group of people that helps to make sure everything is flowing. So I've never
Mhm.
actually asked anybody how they feel when they've left the experience, but I would assume they're full.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. A lot of people talk about how they've been waiting for something like the agroecology or the afroecology encounters and brigades that we host to happen. I think, they just said like finally someone took on the process to organize this, and because it's a heavy lift. It's
Yeah.
no easy feat. And so um it's a space to connect people and for people to heal from the inside out. And so we approach our work understanding that revolutionary change or transformation from the very macro view happens in the micro first and then extends out. It's an inside out process. And so
Mhm.
we literally just bring people together. We do our best to source from farmers in the area, particularly farmers of color. We eat Afro Indigenous foods. We don't just eat anything. We focus on foods that are important to our cultural process, to our cultural identities as people, as African descendants throughout the diaspora. And so we focus on how to nourish ourselves with the foods that our ancestors ate. Like that's not just a convenient selection. That's a very intentional choice that we make because Afroecology, it's about the inside out process, healing ourselves from internalized trauma, from living in white supremacy cultures, and using the land as the base that it is to do that. We can't do that without reconnecting to the land. There's no such thing as liberation, Black or otherwise, without a very strong belonging and sense of connection to the land.
Yeah.
And on the global solidarity piece, I'm thinking of Asada Shakur's statement when she says that imperialism is a global process, and so it's an international phenomenon, and so we have to be internationalists to defeat it. And so we don't have a choice but to stand in solidarity with peasants around the world, other farmers, whether they identify as peasants or not, cultural
Mhm.
historians, all of the titles, all of the roles, all the names.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
we learn from them. And we often say how folks in the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, Cuba, parts of Africa, parts of South America, they are so far ahead of where we are here in the US due to various reasons that we can get into later if you want. So we have so much to learn from them in terms of how they organize their rural farming communities or urban farming communities, how they bridge these false divides between the countryside and the cities. I mean, there's
Mhm.
a plethora of stories and just overall lessons that we are pulling from when we engage in afroecology here. That is often based in what people call like overseas work and knowledge.
Mhm.
And one in particular is the campesino a campesino methodology, which is the horizontal knowledge exchanges between farmers. So campesino in Spanish means farmer. So the farmer to farmer methodology stresses the rich, abundant knowledge that's embedded within farmers' identities and farmer processes and just farmers' experiences. And so to literally bring farmers together on a farm to share knowledge makes huge leaps and bounds compared to like going to a farmer conference and listening to some, academic give a lecture on whatever. It doesn't matter, because that's not how we learn. That
Mhm.
does nothing for our direct realities and taking that knowledge back and practically applying it on our farms. You know what I mean? And so we stress this campesino a campesino methodology as a way to liberate ourselves from Western styles of education and also to spiritually feed ourselves what we know can be and building the realities that we know can be.
That's beautiful. Did anything come up for you while Shakira was talking that you want to add,
Yeah,
Xavier?
yeah. So like I just remember when we went to Cuba, like how much pride the Cuban farmers had to like they were doing like these presentations on the campesino method, right?
Yeah.
So, but like they had an amazing pride on just like showing their own agroecological methods that they came with making, like, fermented plant juice, or these natural pesticides, or these different types of crop rotations, and they were given these, I'm assuming they were using, like, it was something similar to PowerPoint that they were using to kind of show, their comrades, and just thinking about, like, how much that method that we've used has helped me to really grow and understand a lot more, you know what I'm saying? Just around everything, So yeah, that's a, she hit. I feel like she really hit the nail on the head with that.
You really did, Shakira, and we don't have a ton of time left, so now I'm like torn because I want to go a bit deeper. I would love you to speak just the tiniest bit to one of the points you had made when you said that in some ways some of these colleagues and comrades overseas are strides ahead, and that there are reasons for that. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of space to develop that, if there's anything that feels important to framing that more deeply.
Yeah, if I could jump in, I'd love to invite you to take your time. There will definitely be time for Q&A from the audience, but yeah.
Story.
Totally.
Cool. Yeah. So depending on who you ask, it can be a very contested perspective. But we live very luxuriously here, within the borders of empire, the first world, so to say, what people call it. And we have deeply internalized the like pillars of white supremacy culture, namely heteropatriarchy, capitalism, all the things that situates, or that makes it easy for us to be more individualist than necessary, right? And so individualism and these other core characteristics of white supremacy culture is really, I think, is more deeply ingrained here than it is elsewhere, which I think leads to how other people overseas and other places around the world generally can move more collectively and cooperatively and mobilize and organize to work towards the realities that they know that can be, right? And so when they don't have basic necessities such as like clean running water, like these are, to flush the toilet, like very, very basic necessities that I think we take for granted here. Grocery stores to go to that's stocked with stocked shelves of fresh fruits and vegetables. What are you going to do? You're not going to sit there powerless. You're going to mobilize. You're going to get together with your friends, your neighbors, whoever identifies with the struggle, and you're going to mobilize accordingly. And so I think that's a huge part of why other people in other places are further along than we are, because of the necessity to respond to their lived reality of not having some of the amenities and just the luxurious quote unquote rights that we have here. Another part is how a lot of liberatory philosophies have been grounded in places where enslavement and other places have occurred more frequently compared to here in the U.S. Right, so the Caribbean was the heart of U.S. enslavement. You know what I mean? And so the whole organizing culture that's resisting colonialism at large in the Caribbean is much more sophisticated than it is here in the U.S. and in Africa. You know what I mean? So there's the historical context that's different. There's the current lived reality where just basic access to living things is different. And the media, like media plays a huge role too. And I don't want to take up too much time talking, but I hope that.
Yeah, that absolutely answers it. It makes me think of like Maroon legacies in Afro-Brazilian culture. And I'm living in Lome in Togo right now. And one of the things I noticed, to your point, is like, I can't really get anywhere without having to ask someone to help orient me. And everyone's way of just orientation, even in a city, is so interdependent, because so many people rely on stopping and asking a stranger where that place is, and like these relational directions. And it just makes me think a lot of how sometimes our convenience culture pulls us away from connection. So that was just something that came up for me while you were talking. So I think maybe we can end with this last question. Both of you had started to allude to this, but I want to talk a little bit about healing and how the earth allows us to heal. You had said earlier that we can't separate liberation, we can't separate healing from. So I would love for you to develop a bit around that, this piece of healing in the land. And then I would also ask what healing you have witnessed in yourself or among your communities in this work over the years. I'll ask you to start, Shakara, and then we can pass it to Xavier to close us out.
Yeah, healing is a big part. Where to start with healing? So I'll start in a very macro way. So Black farmers comprise about 1% of the U.S. total U.S. farm population currently. We've lost about 12 million acres of land over the past century. We own about 0.5% of the acres in the country right now, and we're still struggling. I think that it's like 35%. 35,000 Black-owned farms in the U.S. currently, compared to millions of white farms, compared to millions of other farms. And so I open with that because just off of the bat, we are struggling economically due to that reason. Like the racial wealth gap is so vast, and outside of the difficulty of making ends meet, like just keeping food on our tables, gas in our cars, our lights on, and so on and so on. We suffer from the internalized trauma of racism, patriarchy. Audre Lorde talks about revolutionary change not just being this external force that you fight, but removing pieces of the oppressor that's been planted within each of us just by living in a white supremacist society for centuries. And so we have a lot to heal from, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, psychologically, and so on. And we understand the land as the mother that she is, and helping us do that. Like we can't heal ourselves in the holistic ways that we intend to without the land. And so again, I'll be repetitive. Like we eat foods that our ancestors ate. We, understanding that the height of African people's civilizations happened, when we were eating certain foods that were directly taken from the land. Like, so are we using olive oil when we're cooking? Are we using sesame oil? Sesame oil is a very sacred indigenous crop in Africa. It's an African indigenous crop. And so we talk about like the cultural histories of our foods, and we connect that to the spiritual nourishment that we're pulling from the foods when we consume it. And just the basic act of touching the soil, putting your hands in the soil as often as possible is something that goes a long way that we often don't hear. And so I often say that seed, soil, water, and the relationships that we have with each other are the only currencies that really matter. And they're the ones that only matter because of the healing that they can bring, right? And so when all is said and done, when capitalism collapses, which it is collapsing, the systems are finally collapsing. This is the tide shifting in favor of abolition and decolonization. What do we have left? We have seeds, we have water, we have soil, and we have our relationships with each other to build this world that we know can be. And that's the ultimate healing salve that we hold very close to us in our head, hearts, and minds.
Sure. Thank you. Xavier, that video for me, it kind of like I was picking up vibes of healing from watching that video. But what do you have to add? What do you want to share from your experience?
I think man, the last piece that Shakira said, I mean, just for me, it's like the land kind of brings people together. You know what I'm saying? Brought us all together, and coming together. I think you know, just meeting all the beautiful people that are part of BDFC and other Black agrarians has really been like I feel like this. It's been healing for me, and it's given me the opportunity to learn so much. So it's given me the opportunity to kind of like be able to share the layers of like patriarchy, right? That I've grown up in, but be able to like, share all these things to understand womanism or Black feminism, to understand all these different things, right? And to meet so many amazing people and to learn these things. And the space, it forced me to kind of have to grow and evolve as a man, right? And kind of as a Black man and figure out like, all right, you know, what's my role in this space? How do I show up? Things of that nature. So like the land, I see like the land, like Shakira said, it's like the mother that like brought us all together, you know? And so I've like, you know, it's been like my greatest teacher, you know what I'm saying? I can't, I've, you know, gone to school and stuff like that, but by far it's been my greatest teaching, always teaching. I'm always learning. And yeah, you know, yeah, it's just so much. So that's how, you know, for me, and then just like being able to kind of through the encounters, figuring out how to share that same experience with other people too. You know, because like Shakira said, like people, I think were it's like the land was like calling out. Is that, you know what I'm saying? Like calling out, or like you're hearing the call, but it's like, you know, what direction do I go? What do I, you know, where do I go? And you know, the encounters are happening, and so it's like when you hear that call from the land, you know what I mean? It's like I can't. That's the yeah. I feel like when you hear the call, you like heed the call and you go to it. You know what I'm saying? And it'll like take you from there. If that, you know, you'll meet amazing people. I've met like the best people. 95% of the people I've met that Mother Earth has connected me with have been amazing people. You know what I'm saying? From all over, all types of backgrounds. It's pretty crazy to have like radical imaginations about like a liberated future, you know?
Right.
Yeah, man. It's been like it's pretty amazing, to say the least. You know, it's amazing. So yeah. So that's what I would say.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a really beautiful note to end on. Thank you both. I'm passing it over to the audience, and they're going to continue with the questions, but it's not.
Well, I'd like to
Oh, wait.
riff. Yes, go.
In the Q&A?
What was
Sorry,
it?
I just should I find the questions in the Q&A or no?
I can jump in and support if that
Okay,
feels useful. Okay, nice. Well, first of all, I'd love to just say thanks. Wow, I got chills, I think about 6 times amidst y'all speaking. And yeah, I love what kept coming to mind for me was that healing is resistance. You know, there's revolutionariness in that, like rest is resistance. And yeah, connection. There's so much beauty in that. And I really appreciate that you ended the question stuff with an emphasis on healing, because what you mentioned, Shakira, around it starts on the inner and goes to the macro. We have to start there. And that's feels, at least in my experience, has been one of the most useful ways to go about this. Yeah, and also you mentioned Adrienne Marie Brown. Her work is just such an inspiration to me. And one of her inspirations is Octavia Butler, who's just such a nerd in the best way about like sci-fi. And what also really came through as a theme of your guys' work with the land is just visioning. Like, how do we vision the world that we want to be a part of, rather than golfering, like trying to solve problems that are here. It's both. It's definitely both. But you guys bring forward such this beautiful, beautiful vision, and you're living it, you're creating it. Yeah, and that's a beautiful act of resistance as well, from how I'm experiencing what you guys are speaking and living. So thank you. And also I'd love to invite in patients from all y'all, but especially from Steph, because I was going through the background and I didn't properly introduce you. So thank you so much for your patience with me. And what are your preferred pronouns, Steph?
I use she, her pronouns. Thanks for asking.
Totally. Yeah, and I'd love to just attune you guys to Steph because she's absolutely incredible. She's working at the intersections of programming and education for social health and equity, cultures and histories of communities of African descent, as well as narratives and storytelling. So I think if we have extra time, a beautiful thing too is just how your work intersects with Black Dirt Farm collectives. And it was just a joy to have you writing this piece. So everyone's really clear on that connection. Cool.
Thanks.
Totally. Yeah. Thanks for your patience. I'd love to hear if we have questions. Please, please, please drop them in the chat. This is your chance. And also, as you guys are maybe simmering or stewing, I'd love to name that, it's possible that some of these topics felt maybe like a little 401 level. I know. So just kind of like enjoying that nice beginner's mindset moment that we're all like meeting each other where we are. And I'm super available. Yeah, like definitely not showing up as an expert, but really happy to pass along any resources that have been useful to me or like integrate or chat further on these really complex, global, and interconnected topics. So definitely please reach out if you have questions or desire support or want to connect further. And to the extent that, Steph, Shakira, or Xavier, you find that useful to you, definitely don't want to offer that on your behalf. But down to clown and I kind of be supportive in that way to anyone. So we have some questions coming through. Delinda is curious on how do we find local BDFCs?
Can I chime in really quickly before Shakira and X answer?
Totally.
I just want to say and I think a lot of times we look to, this is me speaking, this is not me speaking for BDFC, but I think a lot of times we look to examples of models of the groups that we want to connect with locally to show us. And I think we might be looking, but I think also it's like, okay, let's look harder then. So I think the first step is actually looking, but I just wanted to offer that, and I'll let Xavier and Shakira offer their answers.
Well, I would ask in response to that, where is meaningful work occurring? Because the work that we do within BDFC is meaningful work. It's not work that like some 9 to 5 and something that we have to do to pay bills. We do this because it's literally affirming who we are, what we believe in, the world that we are working to bring into fruition. Like so I would look for places where meaningful work like that is occurring, where people are showing up regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the condition, like just showing up because they want to be there, not because they have to be there. And that may be, in the backyard somewhere without a formal building, without, and to sort of veggie back off of what Steph shared. Sometimes when we look, we're missing what's right in front of us because we expect to see like a building with an actual door and, like a very standard view of what it is, when oftentimes you have to peel back the layers and see what's there. And not expect it to be in the form that you are traditionally seeing it as. X, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like y'all kind of handled it pretty well. But yeah, I mean, I guarantee wherever you are, like Shakira said, there's somebody doing something somewhere, just making it happen with what they have and just doing it because it's meaningful and it speaks to their soul. So it's just like, yeah, they might be working with some kids, growing food, or working with their church or community organization. Like it's definitely going down without a question, without question. And they might not be publicizing it just because they're deep into the work. just, yeah.
Mhm. It's beautiful. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And Steph, I know you were mentioning the curiosity of how important questions like that are, because not everyone's based on the East, right? Yeah, how do we look where we are? How do we ground this in our physical location, our neighborhoods, our communities, the unique history and cultures of place? There's no silver bullet for this, right? Although we can look to models and learn and take pieces. Yeah, there's beauty and also just getting really close to the people doing that work, meaningful work. Really beautiful. Tons of stuff coming through the chat on that resonance. Amazing. And yeah, we have one more question, and then I want to squarely pivot to how this community might be able to support you and learn more about what you guys are creating in the world and need support on.
There's also a question above that one.
Yeah,
Jesse.
I was gonna bring that one in. I know, I'm stoked on that one. I'm really curious to hear what you guys think. Thank you so much. I'll go ahead and read it. So Jessie is curious about how you guys mentioned hosting women's retreats and the feminine voice in the collective. And she's wondering how your collective thinks about intentionally bringing women to the land as a source of healing and a way forward. Amazing question, Jessie. Thank you. I mean, maybe Shakira.
I was going to ask to see if you want to start. Okay.
Oh,
and Xavier, please afterwards. I was just trying to help y'all pick a starting point.
you can start.
And I'll be brief, and because I know X has a lot of brilliance to shed on that too. So we're very clear about the violent imposition of heteropatriarchy. And so with that understanding, we center the feminine energy and women in particular in everything that we do, women and children more expansively. And we really can't do that. So to center the feminine energy means to center the land and vice versa. Like the land and the feminine are deeply intertwined, and not to exclude divine masculinity, which plays its role as well, but we understand that sexism and heteropatriarchy and even like trans homophobia, like all of the fem has to be centered in our work, because that's a huge part of building the decolonized world where indigenous peoples can thrive, Black people can thrive, you know what I mean? And we often say that Black liberation can't be sought through the traditional hypermasculine ways of movement building. So we center women's voices as like speakers and as workers, our values, our ideas, our knowledge sets, and so on, because we have to. And really, I think of the Black Deer Farm Collective as like a mothering collective where not everyone identifies as a mother, but everyone brings a certain mothering energy. And if they're not bringing that mothering energy, they are facilitating others bringing that mothering energy. And so when you think of a mother, the mother is the person in the room who ensures that everyone is making sure everyone is taken care of, right? So making sure that everyone is receiving what they need, how they need, the care, the responsibility, the intuition, all of that is like mothering, and we bring that together in a very like deep land-based framework. And yeah, there's a lot I can say about feminism and the centering of women, but I'll stop there because I'm curious what X wants to contribute.
Yeah, all I would just say, like, I mean, from my perspective, like the Black food movement is really a movement guided by women. You know what I'm saying? At least from my perspective. And so, if you're a man or somebody identifies as a man, in order to be in this space, I feel like you have to like understand that, and you kind of have to step your game up, in that regards. You know what I mean? So, also, like, I think BDFC. I'm fortunate. I feel like I'm fortunate enough to be in BDFC with so many kind of like dynamic and liberated women, because I've had the opportunity. I feel like I've had a like super unique opportunity just to like learn so much that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to learn if I wasn't like just in community, you know what I'm saying, with Shakira, with Joelle, with my partner Sade, with Trina, with Quan, with Gail, with Maisha. You know, I wouldn't have like, you know, it's like a very amazing and unique opportunity. And then the other women that you meet, you know what I'm saying? So I remember, I don't know, Shakira, you probably remember this down in North Carolina when we had like this Black elder women's like fireside chat type of thing. Now you remember that? It was like it was amazing, but they were just sharing like these different stories. The ambiance around it was like at night, it was a fire going, but you could really just hear their voices, and they were telling these man, these really amazing stories, you know. And so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, X. And it reminds me of how our goal is always to revive the village mentality and the village environment within our encounters and brigade and just general collective spaces. And the village meaning like these indigenous ancestral places where everyone is intimately bonded together, living together, eating together, working together for the collective benefit of the entire village. And so that fireside chat where elder farm women, Black elder farm women were telling their stories of growing up in enslavement, or I mean, growing up with their parents in enslavement and then being emancipated and like keeping their generational farms going after decades, and you know telling stories about how they are raising their grandchildren on the same land that they grew up on, you know, like these really rich things that we often don't get to hear on a regular basis. And when and women is really important to that process, to the village creation process, because women traditionally have been the keepers of the culture. And so women inevitably have to be centered in that process. Like the reviving of the village environment is ultimately the work of femme across the board.
Very profound. And modeling after Mother Earth, right? Just all teachers, all learners. Wow. Okay, I want to not reply to that because I think y'all said it so beautifully. And instead, yeah, this is an important moment, and I don't want to be shy about it. I want to invite in that everyone showing up here today already is in support by sharing your really, really finite resources of time and attention. So feel squarely the value of that first and foremost, and know also the value if you're watching the replay or you'll receive the replay afterwards to share this. Wisdom was shared here today, and the further it can go, the seeds that it can plant, that is important. So feel very secure in that you have already contributed something if you are listening with an open mind and an open heart. And thank you. And also, yeah, financial resources are imperative to the success and continuation of the Black Dirt Farm Collective's work and vision coming to fruition fully in this world, which is so needed. Yeah, and from the piece, you guys can read a bit at the bottom at the Meet a Farmer feature, but I'm noting that capital is perhaps the collective's most urgent and timely need. And I know that y'all are subsidizing your mortgage, creating a wood shop, hoping to create some tiny homes, and I'm sure probably an endless list of to-dos that funds could go to really beautiful support in. So I'd love to just open this opportunity for you guys to speak to that. Like, how can this community support you? And if they are supporting you, which if you guys see on the brown bar at the bottom of your screen, there's a donate button. You can go there directly and support their work directly. All proceeds go directly to the Black Dirt Farm Collective. So can you guys share a bit like around where some of these funds will be headed? Yeah, I think people probably have the background of why it is so meaningful from the forefront of the conversation.
Go ahead, X.
Yeah, so I mean it's a bunch of stuff. I think the main focus of these particular funds, I think we're going to focus on communication and just kind of building out our communications infrastructure. You know, I think one of the things, you know, to one of Shakira's earlier points is that I feel like, you know, we're all like doing the work because it's like a part of, it's almost like a way of life at this point, you know? And so to kind of take the time to, we don't have a website to build out like the infrastructure for comms is like difficult outside of just like, it's not anybody's skill set in the group, but just like to kind of make the time to just kind of think about, and think about that and then build it out and to be able to connect with more people. I think like focusing on that comms piece is one of the things. I don't, we didn't mention it, but I believe it's in the article. We recently just collectively purchased 24 acres in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. So we're working on building that space out and, paying on the mortgage and all the other kind of, fees that come with being intentional about building a community type of space. So I would say those are the two spaces where the money is going. So I don't know if you want to add anything, Shakira.
Yeah, on the land piece, we were putting a lot of energy financially and otherwise into building out our land visions because this is our home and it's going to be our home as we envision it for some time, especially as cities become more unlivable and um, the countryside has a lot of rich cultural gems that we can't really find in the cities and elsewhere. We're in the midst of a just transition. The climate is changing rapidly. We're in a humanity has received the code red status. You know what I mean? Like we have to transition how we live as humans on this planet. And so within that vision, within that idea, we're aligned in building green infrastructure, so renovating our barn to not only just be a freestanding structure, but to hopefully produce energy that we can utilize in other areas of the land, the farm being one example, right? And so pulling power from the sun instead of paying, municipalities for energy, purifying our own water systems on the land. So all the kinds of green infrastructure that you can imagine is what we envision on the land because that's where we are in the world. Either we become more self-reliant on the land and how she provides, or we'll die because the capitalist industrial system of extraction has run itself out.
You cannot eat money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very, very, very much. And I would love to, if you guys do have the space, just ask one final question that might be like a mic drop one-liner moment. Do you guys have space for that? I know we're just a minute over. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that final question is kind of in the intention of like, imagine you had a billboard, the Black Dirt Farm Collective billboard. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the group, or really like one final message that you'd like to imprint on everyone as they walk away from this session, close their laptop, walk back into the real world, hopefully go put your feet in the grass somewhere? What do you want them thinking about?
Reparations. I can't leave the space without mentioning reparations. So again, the gross racial wealth gap is just a disaster. And yeah, I can't even identify the words that makes me feel how heartbroken I am over like the vast wealth gap that we have in this country. So white folks need to figure out how to return wealth to Black, Indigenous people of color, and not only for our survival as people of color, but for your survival as well. So we're really calling on people with the wealth and the resources, much that has been stolen over centuries, to return that to us who have built up this country to what it is, so that we can all live and thrive.
Yeah, that
Maybe
was
Ed has something softer to end on.
no, I was just gonna say, man, I think people should just read. You know what I'm saying? And just educate themselves. I mean, Shakira mentioned a little bit about she's like black land law or black land theft, but really like really, I think feel like do some deep reading and educate yourselves on like the plight of black farmers in this country. You know, because I mean, we all say like black land lost. It's like 12 million acres, but I used to lose my keys every day. You know what I'm saying? But you can't lose 12 million acres of land. You feel what I'm saying?
Right.
That's like outright theft. So I feel like just really educating yourself on that, because I feel like it's really like lost on a lot of people. Just like, you know, the I feel like the enormity of it is like lost on a lot of people. You know what I mean? So I would say just read and try to do some like deep reading. And it's a ton of stuff that's out there now. And 2022 is like a real good time because there's a lot of information, there's a lot of articles, a lot of written and stuff like that. So I would just say educate yourselves and read. And then I think that will kind of loop you back towards what Shakira said earlier about around reparations. But like, you know, some deep, I feel like it's a lack of like understanding. People just legitimately either don't know or they don't want to know. You know what I'm saying? But they think they know, and then they like, you know, ending up fumbling, you know, in a lot of major ways. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's easier not to know if you have that privilege.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to thank you both for that, because that's really real. And I think it was motivating in ways and enlightening for me. So thank you so much. I mean, for the whole talk, that was really incredible, but especially this. We're at just over $3,300 in support of the Black Dirt Farm Collective, and that's $1,000 jump since we started this talk, directly supporting your guys' work. And I share that because words are powerful and stories are powerful, and you guys are sharing today, and it's really impactful. Also, there's questions coming through around resources. So if y'all feel the desire to share resources to me, I will pass those along to the community. But I would like to share with the group here today. There's a group called Food Solutions New England. They're centered on regional food systems in New England, so on the Eastern Coast. And they host a 21-day racial equity habit building challenge that starts in April. And it's a daily email in your inbox. And I did it last year, and I found it really valuable, because I think a lot of what you're saying, Xavier, around awareness and reading, it's like a practice. It's like anything. It's like a muscle you have to kind of like work out. So I found the 21-day habit building email in my inbox useful. So there's one resource for y'all. The link to donate to the Black Dirt Farm Collective will be live for the next 30 days. So please continue to share the Black Dirt Farm Collective story, share Shakira's story, share Xavier's story, share those elders around the fire story, share it with your community, and go check out who is in your community doing this work as well. So Shakira and Steph and Xavier, just huge gratitude to all three of you for taking the time and jumping into this space. Really grateful. Thank you guys. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Peace.
Yeah.
Y'all, really nice to connect with everyone. Have a
Yes.
great day.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye, Steph.